Why are some people homeless? Now, here's the thing. In this episode, we're not exactly doing a debate. Here, we're just giving you context and then going ahead and making it up a debate. Like, how should we go ahead and get these people not to be homeless? Or should we just let them be homeless? Obviously, what we all want to answer that question is, well, obviously no one should be homeless. As a result, there's pretty much wide consensus on this debate. Unless you are delusional lunatic, otherwise you probably like to be homeless. But let's go back to serious terms. Seriously, so homelessness is a pretty big problem. Homelessness itself, well, in 2015 alone, 3 million people. Oh, I just realized this is in reverse. Hopefully, this is not blurry enough. Around 3 million people live without a home for the same amount of time each year in the United States of America. And in 2015 alone, 1 million of them still had some kind of job, just it wasn't enough to keep them going. Like, the income was probably too meager. Nowadays, though, the minimum wage is $10 per, let's say, hour, like singles $10 per hour. So, and compared to the $1 per hour minimum wage earlier on in the early days, well, yay! At least back then, in like the 19th century, $1 was enough to like buy several things, but now $1 by itself is quite worthless. $10 though, yeah, and $100 in today's standards, that's nothing when you're being fined $100. But back then, $100 was like, I think it was like $100,000 nowadays. But here are some of the reasons why people are homeless. Now, lots of people think that it's because, well, they're lazy, they can't go get a job, or they're just alcohol abuse and drug abuse. Well, yes, some of them are homeless because of alcohol and drug abuse, but that's for another story. And as I mentioned earlier, 1 million of them do have jobs, it's just, well, it's not enough to live on. So, speaking of which, let's start off with income. Income! Now, income goes ahead, and here we have some points here too. Emergency situations such as paying for the house itself. Like, instead of paying for the income that the house provides, like paying for meals and gas bills or electricity bills or Wi-Fi bills, all of that probably is an emergency, and this comes up into your income and cuts it so much that you probably cannot either pay, if you can still probably not pay the full price for the home. Or there's another reason for something income related. It's that it is the loss of income. As soon as you lose income, well, lose your source of income, well, downhill for you. You're starting to run out of money. It's starting to become negative, but the positives are gone. Thirdly, of course, related to the topic of income, is that nowadays America does not really like low income homes. As a result, well, that industry is starting to plummet down, which leads to less low income homes for low income families to live in. And now for the fourth and final point of the income problem is that, well, there's this thing called foreclosure where they literally cannot pay for the house, or at least they cannot pay fully for the house. As a result, their rights to the house is revoked and they're kicked out of the house by their landlord, former landlord, or government owner, I guess. Not sure how foreclosure happens though. Now it's time for the first point of the cons team: abuse or no guardianship. This is basically related to the abusing, like a parent or a guardian abusing the person they're supposed to be caring for, or they just literally don't have a guardian anymore. Well, first off, we're gonna start with some abuse. Parents literally sometimes kick their kids out for several reasons. One of the most common reasons, well, the ones that we hear in the news, is because their son or daughter is a different gender other than boy or girl. Basically, there it is. And some parents cannot accept that. As a result, they kick them out. But now with the advancement of science, these couples can still get kids too. Like a boy and a boy can literally just mix their DNA together and get kids nowadays. But the weird thing is, what gender would that kid be? I mean, obviously that gender will be boy until that kid will grow up, realize what kind of parents he or she has, and then figure it out on their own. But then again, there's not that much else that we can really go ahead and think about too. The second point related to abuse or no guardian related things is that children usually run away from their homes, either because of like parents going ahead and abusing their kids, or they just want to run away from home because they hate their home. And now for the third point is that there's this thing called domestic violence where, well, literally parents go ahead and beat up their kid. This sounds very Asian. And now for the fourth point here is that aging out. Lots of them just age out of the foster care system. Like when they're your official guardians, like your parents. Like when your parents go ahead and pass away into heaven or hell or somewhere in between, then they become ghosts. Regardless, though, when they go ahead and pass away, you put into the foster care system, and until you're old enough to like take care of yourself, which is apparently the age is 18 years old. Well, then after 18 years old, they say, all right, we've cared you for enough. You should learn something. Now get out of here. You're on your own now. That leads them to become homeless because, well, they literally learned nothing and they literally had no loving parents usually, and they literally didn't really have a pretty good life compared to other kids who literally do have loving little parents. And now for the first point of the mental or physical problems is that firstly, mental illnesses always exist inside brains. I'm using pink color because like the pink is the color of the brain. There's like these mental illnesses that literally happen inside these people, and usually that, well, cannot get them to keep a job. And you know what that's like. No job equals no money, and no income equals negative dollars, except there's no positive dollars to balance them back up. Now for the second point of the mental or physical problem is that there's this thing called drug or alcohol abuse. And this is also known as addiction. And when addiction happens, yeah, it happens really hard. And now for the third point and final point of this entire series of videos today is that there are some problems for war veterans. Now, war veterans, you've got to know, they have a bunch of trauma. They just came back from war. As a result, they have pretty much injuries, and they literally have mental injuries too, because how can someone be the same after witnessing so many atrocities on the battlefield in first person shooting mode? Yeah. That's something that none of us that have never been to war can ever relate to. And those are all the reasons why some people are homeless. I promised you guys that tomorrow we will return to the debate, and I will hope to see you guys soon. And until next time, Shahana, peace. Bye bye.